Hey guys, it's Jane. It's not Friday, it's Monday morning. But I couldn't get this done on Friday, and I was planning on doing it on Thursday, but then that didn't happen, and the weekend's been a washout. So it's Monday or nothing, quite frankly. I don't think I'm going to be able to do this Friday either because it's Good Friday and we've got a bunch of stuff on. But I'm here today. I think for a little while it's going to be like this. I'm just going to be here doing it whenever I can. So that means today it is an exciting day, even though it's not a Friday, because it's the first day after the equinox, and there was actually a proper bite of chill in the air this morning. So much so that I made porridge for breakfast, and my boys all chomped it down. So that's exciting because we've been having a heat wave, and when you're 8 months pregnant, the last thing that you want is a heat wave. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. But before I get into the books that I wanted to talk about, I need to say hello and welcome. I've had a bunch of new subscribers and I'm really excited by that. But even more than that, I'm really feeling very warm and fuzzy because I got a number of shout outs in last week's BookTube SFF Babbles, and it's made my week. So thanks very much, guys. And here we go. Let's talk about some books. I've got 4 books that I've finished since I last filmed. I'm only going to do them briefly because, I can ramble and 4 books could end up being a super long video. So I'm actually going to do it in reverse chronological order. Talk about the one that I finished most recently first, which is A Stranger in Alundria by Sofia Samatar. I have been meaning to read this for a couple of years, but I really got my butt into gear after Rachel from Kalanati talked about it in her Overlooked Fantasy Babble video. So I really enjoyed it. It's unlike anything much I've read before. It's got a very lyrical style. It's all told from the point of view of a character who starts off as a young boy from a relatively wealthy family who are spice farmers on an island off the coast of Alundria, which is this kind of empire. And the father comes home from a trip trading spices one year with an Alundrian tutor for his young son. The two of them have a really interesting relationship, and then as a young man, the boy then travels to Alundria after his father dies, and so he has to take over the trading aspect of it. And on his very first trip to Alundria, pretty much everything goes crazy, and that is the meat of the story. So we have his sort of growing up section at the beginning, and then we have this trip, this amazing trip to Alundria and all the things that happen there in this strange other culture where people speak a different language and do everything differently. The travelogue-y kind of part of it is so enrapturing. Everything is described so beautifully that you get really caught up. And then when things kind of take a darker turn, it's really quite emotionally compelling as well. And then it has a bittersweet ending, which is, finishes off lovely. It's a low fantasy. There's not really magic, although there is sort of supernatural elements throughout the story. And a lot of what is the thematic weight of the story is the impact that books have on people's lives. So it's a real book lover's book, and if you haven't given it a try, I'd encourage you to have a look at something a bit different, A Stranger in Alundria by Sofia Samatar. The next book before that I finished was Alloy of Law by Brandon Sanderson. I read this one so that I would be all caught up in able to read Shadows of Self, which is one of the works that has been nominated for Best Novel for the BookTube SFF Awards. I previously read the Mistborn trilogy, but I hadn't read the beginning of the second Mistborn trilogy, so I had to read this one. I enjoyed it. I am one of those people who likes Sanderson but doesn't love Sanderson. So I always think that his works are well done. They're satisfying, they're well structured, and all that sort of stuff. And Alloy of Law was no difference. This one's a flintlock fantasy, i.e., there's guns and stuff. It's kind of an equivalent to sort of like an 18th century, early 19th century world, but it's not our world. It's the Mistborn world. Centuries later. And one of the things that was really interesting about the book is the way that people in this time think of the events and the characters from the original Mistborn trilogy who become kind of mythic figures in their world. So that was really fun. So I enjoyed Alloy of Law. And we have Wax, who is our main character, and his offsider, Wayne. So they were law keepers out in the sort of Wild West version of this world. And then Wax, his woman is killed in unfortunate circumstances, and at the same time he comes into an inheritance back in the big city, and so he goes back and tries to pick up his life in the big city, but can't shake his detective ways. So I'm looking forward to Shadows of Self, and that's all good. The third book, going backwards, that I've got to talk about is this one. Andy Wilson's Outlaws of Time, The Legend of Sam Miracle. I'm still not 100% certain what the actual title of this book is supposed to be. I would have been calling it Outlaws of Time, but now I think that may be the series title, and in fact this book is The Legend of Sam Miracle. But whatever, that's the one, that's what it looks like. I'm not going to talk about this in any length because this is actually an arc, which is something that I don't do usually. I've been approached a number of times since I started BookTube, being offered arcs for review, and I've always said no. This one is an exception because Andy Wilson is one of my favourite authors, and so I actually entered a competition to win this arc and was very excited to get my hands on it. But as a general rule, I don't do arcs just because I don't want to feel obliged to read a book that I don't actually want to. Life is too short. That's not my job. I do this for pleasure. But this one, I'm very happy to get the arc, and I'm going to do a full review of this story to release at the time next month when this is actually came out. But I will say that I super duper love this story. It's not a short one. It's a chapter book for middle grade students. But I got through this in 2 sittings. That is how gripping I found this story. I just loved it. But as I said, I will talk to you more about that another day. The final book that I have to get to is Marlon James, A Brief History of 7 Killings. This is the one that I was reading when I did my last Friday reads, and you may remember I wasn't super loving it. I was thinking about DNFing it, but I was encouraged by a number of people to push through, and I did. I got to the end, and I'm happy that I finished it because there was actually, after all of the drudgery, a very emotionally satisfying conclusion. So I am happy that I finished it. But it was not a book for me, and that's basically because of the structure, how it was written. Lots of short sections, changing from one point of view character to another, lots of its stream of consciousness, lots and lots of violence and profanity and whatever on the page. And I don't, a certain percentage of that is I can live with, but when it's like a lot, I just find it just gets me down. So this is a story about politics and Jamaica. The central event is a shooting that happened at Bob Marley's house in Jamaica just a couple of days before he was to be performing a peace concert. The first sort of quarter or something is sort of giving you backstory leading up to those events. The actual events of that night don't take up too much time in the book. The vast majority of the story is stuff that happens afterwards. Bob Marley was shot but not killed. In fact, nobody was killed that night. There were a number of people shot, but everybody pulled through. Bob Marley dies quite quietly off screen in the story about the halfway mark, because it's really not a story about him. It's really about the people of Jamaica and the gangs and the political maneuverings. And yes, quite a bit of the second half of the book is set in the US, amongst Jamaican people, but in the US. Yes, it does actually have a satisfying conclusion, so I'm happy that I got to the end, but it was not a book for me. But if you are more of a lit fic reader than I am, and you don't mind stream of consciousness and all that sort of stuff, then don't let me put you off. Anyway, that is what I've been reading. I just finished Stranger in a Laundry last night, so I haven't yet finally decided what I'm going to be going on with. I've got a couple of previews on my e-reader, and I'm sort of tossing up between them. It might be Last First Snow, the fourth of the Craft sequence by Max Gladstone. I talked about that in my Overlooked Fantasy, and I actually honestly haven't read the fourth one, and the fifth one is coming out soon, and so I was like, I should really get onto that. So it's one of the things that's possible that I'm going to pick up. Another thing that I am tossing up is Babylon Steel, which is another book that was mentioned in the Overlooked Fantasies. I think it was Thomas from SFF 180 spoke about that one. I got a preview of that, and I'm thinking about picking up that. I don't know quite 100% what else I will be reading this week, but I'd love to hear what you guys are up to. I hope you're all well, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.